Ever get that feeling like you're being watched? Not like full-on paranoid, but just this weird sense that maybe, just maybe, someone's got their eye on you.
It's kind of like that feeling you get when you're walking past a security camera.
Yeah, exactly. You know it's probably nothing, but still. Well, today we're diving deep into the world of police surveillance, and guys, it's way closer to home than you might think.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about the kind of stuff that often flies under the radar.
The stuff you don't see on TV.
Exactly. We've got an awesome source for this deep dive, by the way. A YouTube video featuring Darren,
Former gang member.
right, former gang member, termed like this insightful observer of how law enforcement actually operates.
And what's wild is he's giving us this whole insider perspective on how they build cases against organized crime. And it's not always as flashy as you might think.
No, not at all. It's not all like high-speed chases and stakeouts, though I'm sure there's some of that too.
Oh, I'm sure. But a lot of it's way more subtle. Like, way more about piecing together a puzzle, one tiny detail at a time.
And it all starts with what the police call a house of interest.
House of interest. Okay, sounds ominous already.
Right. So imagine you're living in a neighborhood, right?
Okay.
And every so often there's a police raid.
Happens, yeah.
One day, it's your neighbor down the street, busted for some weed. Another day, it's a house a few doors down. Maybe they found some stolen goods. Seems kind of random, doesn't it?
Yeah, like they're just shaking things up a bit.
Exactly. But what G reveals is that this seemingly random activity, it's all meticulously planned.
Oh, yeah. These raids, often for relatively minor offenses, are all about zeroing in on one specific house, the house of interest.
Okay, hold on. Let's unpack this whole house of interest thing a bit. What's the strategy here? Are they trying to spook their main target?
It's more calculated than that. It's about establishing a legal reason to enter that location, to get eyes inside, and potentially plant some surveillance equipment.
Oh, wow. So we're talking like listening devices, hidden cameras, that kind of thing.
You got it. Remember those probes G talks about?
Right. It's like something straight out of a spy thriller, except it's happening right next door.
Makes you wonder what your neighbors are really up to, right?
Right. Makes you want to invest in some soundproofing, maybe. But seriously, though, these probes are fascinating.
Tell me more. Tell me more. What makes them so effective? Well, you know how you might picture a listening device constantly recording, like capturing every little sound?
Yeah, that's what I'd think.
Well, the ones G describes, they're different. They lie dormant until they're triggered by noise.
Whoa. So they're like sound activated.
Precisely.
So like if it's quiet, they're off. But the minute someone starts talking,
boom. They're recording. They're only capturing the juicy stuff.
Wow. That's kind of brilliant, actually, when you think about it.
Right. It's all about efficiency.
It's like, why waste time listening to silence when you can just zero in on the action?
Exactly. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about patience. Law enforcement, they're often playing the long game here.
Oh, yeah.
They might be willing to forego an immediate arrest, like on a minor charge, if it means gathering enough intel to take down a whole network later on.
I see. So it's like sacrificing a pawn to capture the king kind of thing.
Exactly. Sacrifice a pawn to capture the king.
Wow. That's a chilling way to put it, but it really makes you think. And it's not just about listening devices, right? G also talks about this police database and how every interaction, even something as small as getting stopped and searched, gets logged.
Oh, absolutely. This database, it's like a giant web.
Okay.
Every encounter, no matter how small, adds a new thread to that web.
Okay.
A minor drug possession charge, getting named in relation to a shooting, even just being in a car with someone who gets pulled over, it all gets entered into the system. Seriously.
Wow.
And each entry, it contributes to what G calls your score.
A score. So they're like keeping tabs on everyone, giving them a rating based on their interactions with the law.
In a way, yeah. This score helps them prioritize their targets. It shifts the focus from individual offenses to long-term patterns of behavior.
Okay, I see.
So someone who's been stopped and searched multiple times, their name keeps popping up in connection with various incidents. Even if they haven't been charged with anything serious, they start to move up the ranks, so to speak.
That's kind of unsettling to think about. Like, even if you're not a hardened criminal or whatever, even if you've just had a few run-ins with the law, you're still part of this system, this data web that's being woven.
You're on the radar.
It makes you wonder, where's the line between, like, keeping tabs on people and outright surveillance, you know?
It's a slippery slope, for sure.
It is. And speaking of slippery slopes, G doesn't just talk about this database. He also mentions this, like top 10 lists, right? The most watched individuals in Liverpool at any given time.
Yeah, the top 10 list.
And it doesn't sound good. He says something like no one in the top 10 survives. Like once you're on that list, you're doomed. It does sound kind of dire, yeah. But is it really like that? Are these top 10 individuals just like pawns in some bigger game, just destined to get taken down?
Well, it's not quite that simple, but G's point does highlight something important. These investigations, they take a lot of resources.
Yeah, I bet.
Law enforcement agencies, especially those dealing with organized crime, they have to prioritize. They're going to focus on the groups they see as the most problematic, the ones causing the most harm.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like a strategic decision then. Like they're, what, focusing on the heads of the Hydra?
That's a great way to put it.
But then what? You cut off those heads, but then Guy talks about this cycle where one group gets taken down, another one just pops up in its place.
It's the classic cut off one head, two more grow back scenario.
Ugh, frustrating, right?
And it really gets to the heart of why it's so difficult to combat organized crime.
Totally.
Is it just about catching the bad guys and shutting down networks? Or do you have to look at the bigger picture, the social and economic factors that lead people to join these groups in the first place?
Because if you're just constantly taking out the top players.
There's always someone waiting to fill that void.
Exactly. And that's a question for all of us to think about, really. How much emphasis should be on surveillance and taking people down versus preventing people from going down that path to begin with?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. Man, this deep dive into Darren Guy's perspective has been, it's been pretty eye-opening.
Right.
It's so easy to think of police surveillance as something that's like just in the movies, but his story,
It makes it real.
it does. It really brings it home. It highlights those like almost invisible ways our lives are intersecting with law enforcement. Like even those small, seemingly insignificant encounters, they matter.
They all add up. They paint a picture.
And in a world where we're leaving this massive digital trail,
It's definitely something to think about.
it really is. So next time you see a police car down the street, just, ask yourself, routine patrol? Or is it part of a much bigger picture? Just food for thought. This has been a fascinating look at the hidden world of surveillance and how it impacts all of us. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.